If we look back in our lives, there are big days, and we can remember exactly what was going on those particular occasions. One of those occasions for me is 9/11. This is 9/11, and it happened back in the year 2001. It was a kind of a dull, overcast day. I was driving around my parish in southeast London, St. Mary Magdalene's, Brockley, and I met a parishioner, and she says, "Did you hear what happened in New York?" And I says, "I didn't hear what happened in New York." So she says, "You must come in and see what happened on television." So she brought me into her living room, and they were playing the videos basically on repeat. And you got all of these views of the planes flying into the World Trade Center and the big explosion. And then there was another video repeat about the World Trade Centers falling down like a house of cards. And it was totally unreal. You see this stuff on science fiction movies, but you never expect to see it happening in reality. And slightly under 3,000 people were killed on that day, and it's billed as the single biggest terrorist attack in the history of the world. Now, in 2003, George Bush and Tony Blair launched the war in Iraq. And in that particular war, there was 150,000 deaths that were what we would call violent. And in very reputable studies done, it looks like there was a total of 1 million people who died, what they call excess deaths, people who would have died from secondary causes of the war, like the loss of the medical system and whatever else. Now, this Iraq war spilled over into Iraq, where they had a very bloody civil war, and there was 500,000 killed, and there was a resultant 5.5 million refugees fleeing from the civil war. So where am I going with all of this, right? Now, the 3,000 Americans that were killed on 9/11 were all killed, they were murdered, and they were all made in God's image and likeness, because that's what gives us our human dignity. Genesis 1:27, God made us in his own image and likeness. But the other 1.5 million that died later on in the Middle East were equally loved by God and also made in his image and likeness. And the people who died in 9/11 got a lot more media attention than the 1.5 million that died out in the Middle East. And the point I'm making is that the challenge for us as Christians is to think outside the box and try to stretch our imaginations to see things as God would see them. That is the gospel acclamation that we had today. When anyone obeys what Christ has said, which is God's perspective on things, God's love comes to perfection in him. But that works in reverse as well. When we don't obey the truth of God revealed by Christ, then God's love does not come to perfection within us. Because Jesus is God, he is the supreme revealer of God's truth. And it is God's truth at the end of the day that alone matters.